r/ask Reddit by Redmond Dts. What's the most disturbing secret you know about someone that would ruin their life if exposed, but you stay silent, pretending you don't know? My coworker's entire degree is fake. He photoshopped the diploma, and no one ever checked. I'm gay, and my homophobic father is leaving most of his property and money to my nephew, because, as dad says, at least he'll carry on the family name. Dad doesn't know that my nephew is also gay. More sad than disturbing. My uncle was almost my aunt. He born in the late 40s with no testicles, no vagina, and an enlarged clit or nub, which they discussed removing, but thankfully left alone. Doctor sent him home, telling grandma congratulations on your little girl. She already had 3 older sons under 5, so she was pleased. My uncle spent the first 3 to 4 years of his life being treated and dressed like a little girl. Ribbons in hair and all, though he would ditch them in the yard, so he could play rough and tumble and climb trees and wrestle with his brothers. When he was around 4 years old, his testicles dropped, but his penis stayed a nub. He did later in life marry, but he was never able to have children. But yeah, no one talks about it. He was my favorite uncle. He was so cool. Rest in peace, uncle. My neighbor has been secretly paying the rent for the elderly lady next door for 3 years. He'd be mortified if people knew, because he's built his entire personality around being a grumpy curmudgeon. My husband's former boss is also the owner of the company. He is a very cheap and grumpy person at work, but he pays the health insurance premiums for all the employees and gives a nice bonus each year. My father almost died from alcohol abuse-induced sepsis a few years ago, and we moved him out of his home and into an assisted living center. All of his belongings ended up in my garage in boxes. My mom divorced him 15 years ago because she found paperwork from when he was in rehab, and on one of the worksheets he admitted to having extramarital affairs throughout their 30-year marriage. Recently I've been going through everything and trashing what is expired or no longer needed. I found more worksheets from the same stint in rehab, one sheet detailing all of his sexual encounters. This is disgusting enough info on its own to read about your dad, but it turns out he screwed my mom's best friend Karen, best friend since kindergarten, the maid of honor in their wedding, who is still my mom's best friend today. My mom doesn't know, it would shatter her, and she's a tender-hearted saint of a woman. I've been wrestling with whether or not I should tell her. I also found needles and vials of Naxalone with a flyer on how to use it in times where someone is overdosing from options or heroin. 5 out of the 6 vials had been used. I had no idea the whole time he was in and out of rehab and claiming to be sober that he was using heroin, let alone overdosing that many times. My brother has enough on his plate right now, so I'm keeping this information to myself for now. My brother molested me as a child. I never spoke of it. It would have devastated my parents. His life was shitty as an adult. He died a lonely alcoholic. I've thrived. I know someone who was an accomplice in a murder. One guy was prosecuted, but this guy wasn't. My assumption is he is always an informant, but I don't know this as fact. And he ruined his own life. He is a drug addict. Constantly in and out of jail. A co-worker has a second family 2 states away. Neither family knows about the other. Neighbor traveled abroad for work. When he returned, and exchanging the usual fake neighborly banter, he was showing me pictures. As he scrolled, I noticed the same girl in many photos he said was a co-worker. Then pictures popped up showing her undressing. He nervously laughed and quickly scrolled past. Married with kids. It technically can't ruin her life anymore since she's no longer alive, but my grandma killed 2 husbands. She was a single mom to like 9 kids and a few grandkids and non-related kids, the eldest being permanently disabled and utterly reliant on my grandma, so her going to jail would have seriously messed up her whole family. Now that she's dead, I get to brag about how she dug shallow graves for 2 pedos. I made sure they'd never hurt anyone again. Stuck with me. Edit. Kinda concerning that multiple people are jumping to the defense of pedos without asking for any clarification. Both pedos had more than one victim, and the second one flat out bragged about how he'd continue to molest because he thought my grandma couldn't do anything about it. Hope that answers the questions you refuse to ask, weirdos. My dad's email was on the Ashley Madison leak. My best friend fell in love and actively tried to seduce her biological father. Kissed him when he was drunk, etc. Despite being a jobless drug addict, he was the one that had to go no contact after she wouldn't let it go. For context, she was adopted as a baby and met her parents for the first time at 18. Apparently it's not uncommon for family members who weren't raised together. Her adopted father also had the emotional capacity of a stump, and she was still reeling from being raped in high school. She graduated and currently has a successful career with kids and a wonderful husband, who I'm pretty sure has no idea. A nurse once admitted that she gives people who are at the end of their life and in excruciating pain more pain meds when they ask, even if it's enough to kill them. She never deliberately euthanized anyone, but just really doesn't believe someone should have to spend the last days of their life in severe pain. When I was 12, I discovered my married uncle was gay. He had a wife and 2 sons, but was a closeted gay man who grew up in the 40s. My father used to walk him to school to keep him from being picked on. Anyway, never said a word to anyone. Both he and my aunt have since passed, and it serves no one to share this information now. My dad was in a coma due to the final stages of cancer. I had helped my mom take care of him several times, so I knew how much morphine he was supposed to get over the course of the day. We were told by his hospice worker that he wouldn't make it much longer, and that he most likely would never wake up again. So on the last day we all gathered around his bed and said our goodbyes. His breathing was struggled, and his pulse was weak. My mom got his morphine out and got way more than he was supposed to take at once. My siblings didn't notice, but when she leaned in to give him some we locked eyes and she kind of froze, but I nodded and she gave him enough to finally end his life. Was it murder? Not really. I don't think he would have made it to the next morning, even if she hadn't given him that much. And one of the last conversations he and I had was when he asked me to not let him die miserably, so he would have wanted one of us to do it. My vegetarian friend took me out for burgers. She ordered 1 chicken patty and 1 vegetable patty. But the server misplaced them in front of us. She kept eating and complaining that her burger patty was very chewy today. She never had chicken, so had no idea about the taste or texture. The moment I bit into mine, I knew I got the vegetable burger. By then she had already taken a bite and swallowed it. I knew she will get violently sick if I said the truth, not to mention very depressed. So I never uttered a word of it. It's been 14 years since, and she still doesn't know she ate chicken that day. Not necessarily disturbing, but a secret nonetheless. A few years ago, my dad needed help with his laptop. Somehow the display cable inside came loose. Not a problem, easy fix. When I turned it back on and loaded Windows, just to make sure everything was working, I was met with a window with his Gmail sent messages. Every single one was him responding to mail for mail Craigslist ads. This was about a year after my mom died. They had been married for 35 years, and as far back as I could remember, it was a pretty loveless marriage. I just closed the window, ran Windows Update, because he's a boomer who never updates anyone, and told him everything was good to go. It's something I've only ever told my fiance, and I don't plan on ever bringing it up in a conversation with my dad. He knows I'd be open and accepting. Both of my kids are part of the LGBTQ community, and I'm not bothered at all, but I didn't think it's my place to initiate that conversation. A hookup who I got into a regular thing with ended up telling me, just by way of talking about our lives, that his stepbrother and a couple friends used to torture and sexually assault him. It was brutal, but he was generally past it and okay. By high school, his mom and stepdad had broken up, and he said he never saw his stepbrother much after that. Much later I found out, totally by accident, that I knew his stepbrother fairly well, local business and community kinda guy, very conservative, but he and I got along well. Well, now you know who he is. He's since made amends, we are good. But now I know this guy, admittedly at a tough time in his life, where I knew he was physically abused by his father, was raping his stepbrother. It's such a weird spot to be in. I fortunately don't have to interact with him much, but it's a small town, we run into each other. He surely noticed I'm not as chummy towards him. I doubt he knows he makes me physically ill. I get there are serious factors involved, and it's not my place at all. But it also sucks. I'd honestly prefer to have never known. I work as an ER nurse. My friend's uncle has a pretty tough persona. He also has some baseline medical issues. He ended up being rushed to the hospital for what was thought to be one of his known medical issues. My friend asked me to check to see if he was okay. He was there for a foreign body stuck in his rectum and ended up needing the operation room. The family still thinks it was just a sporadic gastrointestinal emergency. I'll take it to the grave. My father intentionally committed vehicular manslaughter in the no man's land that separates the borders of Thailand and Malaysia. He gunned our BMW 7 Series V8 when someone attempted to overtake when we saw a truck coming in the opposite direction. My sister and I watched out the rear window as the overtaking vehicle suddenly became boxed in, hit the brakes, fishtailed, and flipped multiple times into a large monsoon drain at the side of the road. We both screamed to go back and help them, but my father, a military officer, just continued to floor the execrator until we arrived at the border crossing into Malaysia. As children, my sister and I didn't understand why he wouldn't stop. Many years later he admitted to intentionally attempting to kill the occupants of that car because he wanted to know what it felt like to kill somebody. I haven't talked to him in 10 years. My sister-in-law was raped when she was young and told my mother-in-law. Mother-in-law states, well, we all have to lose our virginity or something extremely rude as a response to my young sister-in-law. Sister-in-law disclosed to me 3 years ago. My husband adores his mom. I'm sworn to secrecy not to tell him. My dream? To whisper in mother-in-law's ear when she is dying, you were a terrible mom saying that to your daughter. That would kill her to hear that. My ex's father was the person of interest in 2 separate murder cases, and I'm sure he did it. The man and his son are evil. I have no evidence, except the way they acted in private, and a few things that he would let slip while intoxicated. I've gone to police, I've made statements, there was never anything that ever came of it. He was under investigation for over 3 years. They had police searching their residence, followed, have been interviewed countless times. I don't think they have anything to mail them with. My stepbrother and his wife surrendered their only child at a fire station because the baby had a disability. They told everybody they had a stillbirth. But in reality, they didn't want to raise a special needs baby. As far as my father and his wife know, they don't have any grandchildren from their marriage. But somewhere, I have a step nibbling with Down syndrome in the system. Edit. Since people are asking how this happened in the United States. We have something called safe haven laws. They vary by state, but the gist is that you can safely surrender an infant at a hospital, fire, or police station within a certain time frame, usually 30 days. I know they have similar laws overseas. Pretty sure an old pharmacist boss of mine was smoking meth back around 2017 or 18. But no way to prove it. I just smelled it on him. Maybe he just cooked it. I do know his parents are well off, and his teeth were veneers. To explain, I know the smell because an ex of mine smoked it years before that. We obviously didn't work out, but it's a very distinct smell. My mother-in-law was raped by her father starting around age 8 and continuing through her teen years. Her mother blamed her and was abusive towards her. I'm the only person on the planet that knows. Mother-in-law eventually cared for her mom until she passed away recently. Their entire family think these people walk on water. It's hard knowing something like that and having to pretend to like the lady. I know someone who killed someone and didn't get caught. I know a rapist who was never reported. I did know a pedophile, and I did ruin his life by exposing him. My childhood friend stalked and killed her rapist. She told me a few years after she did it. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more? Have a nice evening. Tell your friends about me.